go.
Welcome back to episode number 5.
It's 5 if you're not bilingual.
We're bilingual in his house.
Yes, we are.
Apparently we're tired too. So, welcome to episode number 5. It's called Blue Eye, Brown Eye.
Yeah.
Although I wrote Brown Eye, Blue Eye here, so...
Wow.
I
literally asked you if
it
was blue and brown.
But the other one I said blue or brown.
You did?
Blue, brown.
Blue, brown?
So blue-brown first.
Brown,
yeah.
brown.
Mostly because I have blue eyes, and that's going to be important here in a minute.
And I have brown eyes. Is that least important in a minute?
It will be of lesser importance.
In a minute?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'll trade, though. We'll take turns.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a video that KJ found.
Mm-hmm.
It's an experiment from the good old days, it looks like.
Yeah, I was like, I don't even know when was it? What year was that?
I don't know. That lady had a beehive, though. So it was a while ago. And so we're going to talk about a video and just how this whole thing, how we can mold children, good and bad.
Yeah. So the video, as you probably heard from the snippet that I put, because I just decided I'm going to put it in there. What the point of the video and why I sent it to you was because I just found it very interesting how impressionable those kids were. And we know that kids are impressionable, but it made me think about the topic of, like, you hear people yelling all the time, like, racism isn't, you're not born with it, you're taught it. Mm-hmm. And it's just crazy, like, how fast they just turned on each other. And these are, like, skin color off the table, we turned into just eyes, right? Like eye color, brown eye, blue eye, and it was just like nuts within minutes, she said. Like 15 minutes, they were already just like going after each other. Yeah. Which is wild to me. Like, what was your thoughts when you watched it?
Well, so for those of you, KJ will play a little snippet, we'll share the whole link, but essentially it's a teacher does an experiment way back in yesteryear, and she splits the kids up blue-eyed, brown-eyed. Mm-hmm. Apparently there were no green-eyed kids in this class.
Yeah, right? I was like, huh?
They weren't even. They're like the Native Americans. They're like
they were over there.
And for one day, the blue-eyed kids they're like privileged.
They're superior.
Yep. They get to go to recess sooner. They get to go to lunch first, or they get longer recess. They go to lunch first. They get all this extra time for things. Mm-hmm. Brown-eyed kids have to wait.
They get a collar put on them.
They have to wear a collar so you can easily identify them.
Yep.
And then they switch the second day, and you just see how quickly they adapt to that, good and bad.
Yep.
And I think to start, like, honestly, I wasn't really surprised. Like, I mean, like you said, the kids, we know they're moldable. Mm-hmm. And, so the general concept wasn't super surprising, but the speed
at which it happened
was insane.
It was instant.
I mean, I know it's like snippets through this video, but then she confirmed that it was like 15 minutes and they're actively, and I mean, within one day they're saying like there's fights at recess, and she's like, well, what happened? Well, he called me brown-eyed. And it's like, these kids are young enough that they can't think through this clearly, you know? Right. And so the fact that just like within hours, that was an insult that could start a fight. Yeah. And
it's
kids were really upset, and it was it's scary.
It was weird because I keep burping. God dang! Stop drinking this stuff. But it was weird because I was with you too, where I was like, wow, this happened so fast, and to see the correlation between stuff that's happening now, and I like how she started out the video, like, how do we treat people of color, and they all were like, without any hesitation, bad. They don't get anything. Why? Because they're brown, because they're black. Like, and they go home, those kids went home, and that's what they heard. Right. And that's what they were taught, and that's what they were shown. And then to be like, okay, well, let's flip the script on you and be like, okay, blue eyes. No green eyes. Okay. Blue eyes, you're better than everybody. And like you said, kids are fighting each other. Yeah. There's like kids that grew up would never in a million years go get in a fist fight with their best friend, but it divided them. Mm-hmm. And it kind of just made me go, this is crazy because this is still happening on, like, I don't want to use the word like micro levels, but it's still happening. Because you'll see those videos of like 2 kids that are different colors, one kid's black, one kid's white, and then like they see each other and they run up to each other and they hug each other, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Not to be a cynic, but like, why is that beautiful? Right. Why isn't that not normal?
I think it's the innocence that's beautiful. Because we know, we all grow up jaded. We all grow up seeing that difference. Sure. And like, we've talked about like colorblind, good or bad, but like kids are. That's not I mean, I remember I moved in 7th grade or whatever from even less diverse area than Roseville. And I moved to Eden Prairie, which for a long time was like the Somalian capital of the United States. So it has very heavy presence. And I remember walking through the school, seeing things on girls' heads.
Oh, yeah.
And just being like,
what are they called?
Hijabs? Hijabs? Yeah, I don't know if that's the same in all languages and whatever.
Yeah,
but
sorry, guys. Correct us.
We'll learn about that someday.
Yeah, sorry.
But you're just walking through like, wow, that's so weird. But it never struck me as like, I should not like it. Mm-hmm. It was just this like mystery to me, and I think I was rather inquisitive, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But had I grown up differently, would that have instantly been like, Kip, don't walk on that side of the hallway?
If you were like told that. So kind of related back to this, like, obviously these children were told this, right? And they were able to, and I hope these kids grew up and like, didn't end up being super racist. We're old enough to remember, because I know it's kind of hard for me to remember stuff from that long ago. But taking this concept, right, and taking the concept of like you and I knowing that you weren't taught that way, right? Let's like think back to us when we met, right, and we became friends. What did you have any like thought process or any bias or anything that kind of like stirred up from not necessarily your upbringing, but just like as being a child and being impressionable and being someone that didn't necessarily come from a lot of diversity?
No.
Okay.
But I think I'm a naturally very curious person.
Okay.
So I don't tend to... I'm going to sound really ignorant here. I'm going to say like I don't jump to like conclusions as far as what people look like and what that means for them, but we all do it, micro or not. See episode 2
Hey.
for implicit association. So I know it's there, obviously, like I'm seeing it, but I get very curious about people that look or are or think differently. So I think if anything, I was very intrigued by you. Okay. To be clear, the first time I actually noticed KJ, she was a criminal, so way to pull that stereotype.
Whatever.
She stole my camera.
I did not. I don't remember that.
Well, there are pictures to prove it, and I will find them for our podcast.
Okay, for those of you guys who don't know our background, we've known each other since the 8th grade.
That was 8th grade.
Yeah, 8th grade, and we are now 30. Just so you can do that math.
Thanks for that.
It's fine. You do that math yourself. So we've known each other a long time. Her recollection of our first encounter is much different than my recollection of our first encounter. But
well, you were too busy thefting.
Thefting.
To understand.
I didn't theft. I brought it back.
Borrowing without consent.
Okay. Thefting.
Anyways, it was the start of a lovely friendship.
It was.
I will say we didn't really connect much then, but later on, I honestly couldn't even tell you how we came back together. All I know is you were the reason. I had to put together a business plan for my mom as to why we needed more text message limits.
Because I was on unlimited.
I was not.
Yeah, you weren't. But you also were always behind. Like you had like the same phone forever.
It was a fantastic QWERTY.
Okay.
Let's just start with that.
Okay. I'm pretty sure my phone actually was like the internet, but like you didn't want to hit the internet.
She was sidekick. Exactly. We talk about stereotypes.
Again, what you mean? I was trendy.
This was so bad.
With the trackball that lit up, those are lit, bro. All puns intended.
Oh, I should. You know what I think I have on my old cell phones? I should bring them out one day.
I broke it. I broke the trackball. Yeah, I dropped it and it broke the hinge so it never closed back, and then one day the trackball fell out.
That's devastating.
I know. It broke me.
Well, so she's a theft and a breaker.
Get
so look at her.
Heartbreaker.
So, but honestly, I couldn't really tell you that I had anything instantly that came. I know that very quickly it was clear to me that other people maybe didn't get it.
Okay. Go on.
Explain. KJ is I'm going to spoiler alert a lot of this for people. KJ is somebody who everybody thinks that she's their best friend, but in reality, I am. So, it was very clear early on that there were a lot of people that liked you and wanted to be your friend, and I wasn't sure why always.
Okay.
And it was
You didn't see my finesse right away?
I mean, I did.
I'm just kidding.
I did. But it was... and we'll talk about this in future episodes because it's a very, I told you a list.
Another one.
Because I am very intrigued by how we change with black and white people, right? If we go black and if we go white proper, whatever we want to call it. But people changed with you. And it was just something that I would watch happen, and it was like, okay, why are they changing?
So explain what you mean by change.
Like they're black, like how we talk different.
And
like,
people meaning people of color or just people in general?
People in general.
Okay.
Like, and honestly, mostly white people. Like, they come to you, and you were like this cool, like, black girl that I can go get it with, and I can, like,
But, like, was I?
Oh. No, because as I said before, you're like the whitest black person, which is another topic to cover.
Yeah.
So, no, it really, I think you were just, you brought out changes in people, and I didn't know why, because I wasn't doing that. I wasn't like, okay, she's black, so I gotta talk like this. I have to, like, so I noticed it.
Okay.
I probably did it more than I know, but
I don't think you did.
It was interesting to see how people came about that.
Okay. So was that curiosity the catalyst for our like relationship, or was that just a part of
it was just like a bonus,
like the navigation through our like friendship?
I mean, you really just like forced your way in there.
100% did. But you allowed it.
I did. I didn't have a lot of friends.
You're very like open about it. Like there was no. That sounded weird. You never gave me any signs that you were uncomfortable by it. No. And by force, like, obviously I didn't like...
We were supposed to be friends. That's what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So we're friends.
Yeah.
No, it was just very natural how it all came together, and your race was of no... It wasn't anything I thought about. I became more conscious of it probably the more we hung out, because I would come into your family's house, and, like... I mean, we were joking before this. I showed her pictures of a time I saw you getting your hair done. Yeah. And, like, that's a new experience for a white person who has never had to deal with black hair. Yeah. You know, and just to, like, hear and see things, lifestyle differences, and it became more evident to me.
Sure.
Sure. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, I that was just a question I thought of, really.
I've never thought about it.
Well, good. I'm glad that I provoked you.
I mean, like, since then, it's very clear that, like, you're my one black friend.
Yeah. But and it's funny when you say that, and, like, we laugh at it, but, like, and that's another conversation we can get into, where everyone's like, well, I got a black friend. Like, I was always your one black friend, but not in a bad way. So it's like, now here we are, like, in our, early adults, right? And you're like, oh yeah, you're my one black friend. I'm like, no, but I've always been that.
Always.
So it's not like, it doesn't have the same meaning.
No.
That like, I think people take when we joke about it.
Yeah, when we joke about it. I just have lived in very white areas.
Yeah.
But I'm also the person who swore I'd marry a black man.
She did.
If you ever... Okay, for the record, because I think they're beautiful, not for any other reason.
No, I swear on everything I thought for the longest time you were going to marry a black dude.
Yeah, I have a very, very white husband.
Oh, yeah, you do. Which, it was funny when you started dating Greg, I was like,
like, so was I.
Like when it happened, I was like, he's not black.
Yeah. I mean, my next one probably.
Probably, yeah. Second marriage.
He'll be dead.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, but that question, I don't know, I just kind of thought about that because I get asked more now than I did back then, like what cultivated our relationship. And like you said, for me, it just, I don't really know how to explain it because I think you said it best. Like, I am definitely somebody that people mesh with. So I would say I would never disagree that I don't have a lot of friends. But I don't have a lot of really close friends, right? Like, and I mean that, like, close friends, right? I have people that I'm close to, but, like, you know when you're close to me. You know when you've made my very small inner circle. And you did it so quickly. And I've never really stopped and really thought about it until as of late because, we started a podcast and, like, people know who you are. Like, if they know me, they know you. Whether they know the details of it, they know for a fact. And that's been, like, my whole life, pretty much, it feels like. Like, yep, I know.
Apparently a lot of it, based on those years.
Yeah. But people ask me, like, well, how did you guys kind of be friends? And I'm like, honestly, I can't tell you. I was like, I don't know. There's no one moment in time, but it just went from, like, I just remember when I actually, this is going to sound bad, when I actually noticed you for, like, who you were just so genuine. And not to like knock anybody else, because I'm not saying that people that I haven't talked to are genuine or disingenuine, but like you were just so like raw is like kind of the only word I can think of. And like that was, for my side of it, was intriguing to me. Because I don't know, I would like to think I'm pretty good at reading people, and there was nothing to read with you. Like there was no, and I know it's not bad, but like you were you. And there wasn't a wall, there wasn't anything, you weren't trying to be cool, you weren't trying to get me, like you didn't care about my hobbies like obsessively, like you supported me in everything that I did. But I was able to be my own person, and you were able to be your own person, and then it just like meshed.
Right.
And I had never had that before. I had never had someone who like we could be two independent people, but be like one strong unit together. So that's kind of like what I think about. And at no point in time did the color of your skin even like cross my mind, which it had previously with other people. And now that I like actually as I've gotten older and thought about it, because at the time I was like, oh no, I didn't really think about it. But I'm like, no, actually I did. Like I noticed when I was different.
Well, so I was just going to ask, because you were obviously surrounded by more white people, so did it really cross your mind, or? But
yes, subconsciously, yeah. But I always noticed when I was different, but I never felt different around you. And I don't know, I can't pinpoint it, but like that's why I was drawn to you so quickly. Because I like dove into that friend. I was like, you're going to be my friend. I just decided. I like, woke up one day and I was like, nah, she's my friend.
Yeah, it was pretty instant. Like instant tea. Just like
it was.
Just
like,
add water.
Water and
we're
tea,
friends
and it was
now.
like
Also need a lot more text messages, Mom. Thanks for that, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom.
Well, for what it's worth,
Appreciate it.
you were like step 1, Greg was step 2. After that, it was
over.
No holds barred. We needed some text message.
Gang.
So yeah, I mean, I think what I took away from that video, and like, it's funny to think about us and how it's almost hard to put us in those shoes. And so then I try to think like, okay, outside of you and me, like, have I had that experience? Could I have had that experience? And it's hard to like admit or think or know if we could have or we would have, but I think that's the one note I took out of that whole thing was just like how kids can be raised to be whatever we want them to be. And not even consciously want them, but just the world we create. And so when we create a world where, you know, I know there's people, blacks are underrepresented in movies. When we watch movies, and when they are there, they're the bad guy. So, you know, that's true. That is, you know, telling me that a brown-eyed kid, a brown-eyed person is going to be the bad guy. And, you know, they're underrepresented. They're not in... There was some commercial that was out there for, like, eyeglasses recently. I don't know if you saw it, but it was, like, this little girl gets glasses, and she's, like, super embarrassed, you know, just... But before that, I think they showed her, like, being a reader. And she gets these glasses and she's really embarrassed, and I don't know if it's the doctor or somebody hands her a picture of like some famous lady in history that had glasses, and so then they like pan later in her room, she's got this whole wall of famous ladies with glasses on and like look who you can be kind of thing. And it's like, so we don't have that for black kids. When we do have anything showing black people, they're not always in the best light. And so how do we expect them to be any different? I mean, it's going to have to be an active adjustment. And that's something I love seeing out there with all the Instagram and all the things going around now is all these books about like, you know, how to be anti-racist, or just books with diversity in them for kids. And that's just like, the more we just get them around it, the less it's a mystery. That it's not you show up in 7th grade and see a Somalian and go, what's that thing, you know? And so that's, I think there's a lot of opportunity. People are really aware of it. There's more resources now, probably more than ever, that we have to use. But that video is a scary premonition of what it can be if we don't actively... if we don't do... Or even just a reminder of what has been. Because, I mean, that video is old, but that video is still relevant. Right? Like, that. There are still kids that go to school... And based off of whatever subconscious, it doesn't matter if their parents are directly telling them, like, we don't like this kind of person, they hear that stuff, right? And it was kind of like, whatever tangent I went on about, like, when you talk about people in a scenario, and then the first thing you do is, like, say the person's race,
Right? Like, your kids hear that. Children hear that. People hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do your kids do? Like, your kids are a walking mini version of you. Mm-hmm. So if every single time you get upset, it's like, oh, the dang Mexican guy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? That's how they grow up with these kind of, like, just subconscious thoughts of, like, well, Mexicans probably aren't all that great, because every single time my mom ever says anything about Mexicans, they, like, did something bad.
Right. They're going to hear the critical adjective and the critical noun that... Yes, when I say, like, in that conversation, said, the black person hit me with the cart.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that kid is going to say that black was a critical part of that story. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're going to mimic.
Right.
It's spitting images.
Uh-huh.
Little parrots.
Everything. They're reflective of you. And it's like, and I feel like right now everybody's so hypersensitive, and especially by the topic of kids, and, like, I feel like, too, when people start talking about other people's kids, they're like, oh, you don't have kids, so it doesn't matter. It's like,
actually... I was going to say that. We don't have kids.
No, I don't have any kids. So but I think that, to that point, I think you need to really start listening to people that don't have kids, because we're a third party. Mm. We're a third party. I'm looking at your life. Like, it's really hard to notice things about yourself or about your family and about, like, the subconscious things that you do when you're in it every day. Right? So if someone is telling you, like, hey, man, like,
that's a really interesting perspective, because I think a lot of people do. When you don't have kids, you don't have a right to...
You don't get to say anything. What do you know? You don't have kids. I don't have kids, but I'm watching you and yours.
Right, and I'm afraid of what you're creating.
Like, I'm a person. Like, I'm still a human being. At the end of the day, I can tell you, like, hey, that doesn't sit well. Right. Or, like, I don't think that's really a message that you want to, keep letting your kids say.
Right.
Right? So, I'm just saying, for the record, I don't have kids. Worked with kids for a long time. A lot of my friends have kids. Maybe I'll have kids someday. But I think that people need to, alongside just hearing information, take that third-party information so that they can filter it and then give the right information to their kids.
Yeah. Well, and think about it this way, too. I mean, we don't have kids. We don't know what that responsibility and stress and tiredness is. So maybe we can be a resource that, send them to somebody who can have that conversation with them, who can read them the book. I mean, things like that can help. I talk a lot about, like, the Pinterest mom. Like, you have to do all your arts and crafts. You have to DIY your whole house. You have to meal prep every week. Your kids have to have, like, the bow on top of their head. And now you have to teach them to be perfectly anti-racist.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
I'm not even doing it, and I'm tired for you.
Out. I was just about to say, like, my kid's going to be in rough shape because I don't even know how to Pinterest.
I'm lucky. I'll get us there. I don't know what this podcast has to do with Pinterest. I
don't know how to Pinterest.
I live on Pinterest. I love it when Greg comes to me and says, like, I found gardening stuff. Like, have you seen this site? Freaking Pinterest.
Yeah. Every time.
Every time. It's fantastic. Hashtag Pinterest. Love it.
Trying to get Scottish.
But, maybe... can we be a resource as people who might have a little more time or have just patience to help? And kids are so innocent in their ability to ask questions and engage. Maybe that's a great thing. Actually, Chip and Joanna Gaines brought their whole family to a conversation. I actually don't know the guy's name, but he calls it Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man.
Oh, that was on YouTube.
Okay, so
I didn't watch it, but I saw that. It was like a thumbnail that popped up.
He did a first video, and then they brought their whole family, and he starts it off with, Chip, tell us why you wanted your kids here. And he's like, because I want my kids to, from day one, be a part of this conversation and hear what you're going through, what they can do, what we can learn.
That's awesome.
And I think so things like this, like, they're not going to understand everything by all means. Maybe not all ages this is appropriate. I cuss sometimes.
So do they.
Full disclosure.
So your parents. Don't act like you don't.
But, can you engage them in this conversation? Go to your one black friend and let your kid ask the questions.
Yeah, totally. Well, and then, like you said, they just have this uncanny ability to just be so brutally honest, and it's something so poetic and beautiful about it. Because it's just like, it's coming from a place of pure curiosity, and there's no true malice.
Right.
And so when you hear it, you're just like, okay. Like, that was a thought. Like, that was a true thought that you had, and I want to discuss that.
Right.
And I think that's really cool. And
that thought came from somewhere.
Somewhere.
Which means it could have come from your home, from school, from somewhere else. And so it's they need that answer, actually.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're so impressionable. And we care so much about, like, what they eat and what they watch and who they hang out with and, like, what schools they go to. Like, getting diversity into your children early on is important. And that word means so many things for so many people because, yes, you might live in a very rural area or an area where there aren't a lot of black people. That does not mean that they can't be exposed to positive black influences, right? Influencers or influential things, right? Mm-hmm. Or even, like, getting involved in trying to find out, like, where in your community can I bring my child to be more diverse? Mm-hmm. You know, how can I get them to understand? Because I mentioned it before, you know, right now more than ever, everybody, we're on the same team, mm-hmm. right? We're united more than we've ever been, whether we realize it or not. We just don't understand each other. Right. And that's, like, anybody knows being a child, your whole life, you're just like, I don't understand things, mm-hmm. right? You're always asking questions because you don't understand. This is the time. And as a parent, I can only imagine having to know the answer or feeling like you have to know the answer is stressful. And it's like you don't have to know the answer, mm-hmm. but it is your responsibility to find it, mm-hmm. right?
To give them that avenue, that opportunity.
That opportunity.
Well, and I think right now, like, we're in the Black Lives era, mm-hmm. I'd say. Mm-hmm. And, we talked about it, we will talk about the All Lives Matter and that.
We're going to talk about it, guys.
Where we're at. But that's on KJ's list. But beyond that, like, the diversity that you might have access to might not be black.
Right.
As far as, like, getting hands-on, let's call it.
Yeah.
So don't, like, it doesn't have to be black
no,
right now. Like,
no.
You can be around an abundance of diversity.
All people. People of color. Like, even non-people, like, even, like, my boss, like, she grew up Catholic, and we were just in the car, we were, like, driving back and forth to different spots the other week, mm-hmm. and she's like, what's your religion, and we were just kind of chatting about it, and she's one of those people, she's not like you, where I can have this conversation, and you hear me talk about these, we have these very open conversations, and we understand we're both human beings, and we can agree and disagree, but she was just asking me, she's like, what do you believe in, like, can you explain it to me, like, how does this work, and I asked her, and she's like, I was raised Catholic, but I don't, like, follow it anymore for whatever reasons, and I was like, okay, and so we kind of talked, and I'm like, I know nothing about Catholicism, mm-hmm. like, zero things, and that was a diverse conversation, mm-hmm. right? Like, that was me talking about my religion, which is Pentecostal, right? And explaining how that works and yada, yada, yada. And then her kind of diving into a little bit of, like, the Catholic Church and mm-hmm. things like that. And then, like, where she has progressed now, because she's, about a decade-ish older than we are. And just, like, her journey through life and, like, finding religion and finding herself. And, like, that's diversity. Right? Like, that wasn't a specific conversation between me and her about black and white. That was just like, oh, what do you believe?
Right.
And I even started the conversation with, like, because we volunteered in North Minneapolis, and we were at a church, and we kind of were talking about it. I was like, oh yeah, that pastor's really cool. And she's like, well, what's the difference between a pastor and this? And yet, right? And it just kind of started as, like, a very casual conversation. And then I finally was like, do you believe in God? Because, like, I didn't know.
Right.
Right? And then it just turned into that. And by the end of it, it was like, man, that was a really cool conversation. Mm-hmm. But that is diversity. That is learning something outside of what you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And, like, right now, like you said, it is really prevalent right now that we're, like, in the Black Lives Matter movement, but it doesn't have to be black. Like, if you're Jewish and you want to learn about something else, like, mm-hmm. do it. Just open your eyes and your mind to just something that isn't you, mm-hmm. right? Or isn't all that you've known.
Right.
And I think that, like, kind of coming full circle to our friendship, we have always been very, like, curious people and want to have, like, a tone of intelligence, right? And with being intelligent comes, like, knowing that you don't know things.
Right.
Which means you have to dive in. And I think that for both of us, whether we realized it or not at the time, was that. Mm-hmm. Was us having that yearning to learn and being like, okay, we can do this mutually together, respectfully, honestly, openly, and then it just really kind of blossomed into, like, what it is now. Mm-hmm. I don't want to speak for you, but that's, like, how I feel
exactly.
About it.
It's to be so different and so together is a unique relationship and mm-hmm. Honestly, like, a blessed opportunity. Like, not a lot of people get this in any way that they can have, whether it's their marriage, their work, their family, anybody. So, mm-hmm. And it just happens that we're of different race.
Yeah.
And that gives us something to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But
we've talked more about race now than we have our entire lives.
Yeah. And that's, I think of like any of my friends that there's something different about everybody. How you were raised, how you think, how you disciplined you are, where you work, and that's all something to learn and just appreciate the differences. And I mean, we will not go religious here, but I have always said that I'm Lutheran, I'm Christian, I believe in God, and that's how I live my life.
Right.
When it comes to other religions, my basic summary has been, if you have something telling you to be a good person, I frankly don't care
about it.
What it is, because it's just at the end of the day, we're all humans. We want basic humanity and good things. And so whether that's Buddha or Allah or God, I can have that conversation with God someday.
Yeah.
Honestly, maybe he's all the same guy. We might not.
We might not know. We never know. You won't know till you know, right?
So, it's just being open and appreciating those differences and knowing that at the end of the day, race, religion, gender, we all just want to be better, be together, be loved,
be accepted.
Accepted, everything.
Yeah, so I think that's huge. And obviously, like, the whole point of this conversation was to talk about this video, but I think that, like, we forget that we were those kids, right? We were those kids that were faced with a moment in our time or in our lives where we were told or we were subconsciously given information where it's like, you're brown eyes and I'm blue eyes, right? And as you get older, unfortunately, it becomes more normal, and then it becomes a part of you, and then it becomes just your everyday, and then you pass it on, right? And that's where the systemic part comes. Right, so I don't know. Definitely made me kind of my eyes, and I don't have any kids, and I wasn't like trying to go that way, but it really was eye opening to just.
Well, if anything, just like as a person, watch what you're saying around kids, and around anybody, but around kids to know that we don't have kids, so I'm not watching what I say on a daily basis. I keep saying someday when I have kids, I'll swear less. We'll see.
Right.
But I think. So I have no filter for the most part, but am I around the neighbors' kids? Am I, when I have coached sports, I'm around them, I'm influencing them, and just being aware of that. No matter, kids especially, the kids are the future, right? I mean, they are, when we talk about like going to ground zero to fix this, we have to fix it and then we have to grow with it. And if we raise kids who are growing a different direction, we're going to have the same conversation in another 20, 40 years.
Yeah. Yep. So, and another revolution in 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of scary.
That's when you guys will rule us all.
I want to revolt for something else. Not race. I want to revolt for something else. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I'll put a little snippet of the video. I'll put the full video on our Instagram so people can watch it because it's crazy. Yeah. It was crazy. It happened super fast.
It's a good little shock to your system as far as how quickly that happens.
I was like, wow.
Awesome. Well, these opinions are our own. Feel free to fact check us. Comments and questions are always welcome because we'd love to engage, and hopefully this has been enlightening.
Yeah, it has been for me. We got a little deep there for him, and I liked it.
And now you know how we met. I'll find the pictures.
Oh, God, here you go. Anyway, thank you guys. Don't forget to go on to our Instagram, our Facebook, our Anchor page. Leave a message. You can leave a voice message. We'll hear it if you guys want to talk to us. It's a nice private way to kind of be a part of the conversation. Unless you want to throw a comment, you can do it the traditional way. And then YouTube, you can watch the video. Or if you know somebody that wants to hear it but doesn't want to sit and listen to a podcast, they can watch the video. So that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. I need a burp again. I'm trying to get all the burps out before I hit record.
Well, I'm already. I got some bloops.